Assalamualaikum semuanya, selamat datang di Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. Perkenalkan, nama saya Zulhuda, mahasiswa Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Dan saya Vrije, mahasiswa Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Pada kesempatan kali ini, kami akan mengajak kalian untuk berkeliling di Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Di sini, kalian bakal dapat banyak banget ilmu pengetahuan dan juga relasi yang sangat luas.
Dengan berbagai program studi yang unggul, pengajian-pengajian profesional, hingga fasilitas yang mumpuni, kalian bisa mewujudkan mimpi kalian di sini.
Mulai dari konten kreator media, peneliti dan moderator ramah, hingga menjadi seorang rekan muda.
Kak, bisa lihat langsung semuanya nggak sih?
Bisa dong.
Yuk berangkat. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam. Apa Pak?
Alhamdulillah baik, Prof.
Pada mana?
Mau ngajak calon mahasiswa untuk berpilih di UI, Prof.
Oh, ini calon mahasiswa baru nih.
Betul, Prof.
Tolong dianterin. Pasti Prof nanti kalau pendaftaran di situ ya.
Oke, siap, Prof.
Selamat mendaftar ya. Ya, assalamualaikum.
Siap, boleh bersalam, Prof. Kalian tahu nggak sih, UI itu satu-satunya kampus yang terlahir dari masjid. Dan di UI terdapat 6 fakultas dengan 19 program studi yang bisa kalian pilih. Buat kalian nih yang suka banget sama teknologi, ilmu-ilmu alam, atau ingin terjun ke dunia saintek, Fakultas Sains dan Teknologi merupakan pilihan yang tepat. Di dalamnya terdapat program studi teknik industri, teknik elektro, informatika, biologi, teknologi pangan, dan gizi. Fakultas ini juga dilengkapi dengan berbagai fasilitas laboratorium mendukung loh, mulai dari laboratorium manufaktur, laboratorium kimia, laboratorium elektro, laboratorium mikroorganisme, dan lab-lab yang berkaitan dengan sains teknologi lainnya.
Fakultas berikutnya adalah Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis. Buat kalian yang mau masuk ke dunia bisnis dan keuangan, cocok banget nih. Ada program studi manajemen dan program studi akuntansi. Di Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis juga terdapat fasilitas laboratorium Bank Mini loh, di mana kalian juga bisa belajar banyak mengenai keuangan dan perbankan.
UI juga ada Fakultas Psikologi dan Pendidikan nih teman-teman. Buat kamu yang aware tentang mentality dan konseling, program studi yang ada di fakultas ini pas banget.
Mulai dari program studi psikologi, PG PAUD, bimbingan konseling Islam, dan pendidikan agama Islam. Pada fakultas ini terdapat lab konseling, lab micro-teaching, lab eksperimen, dan lab-lab lainnya yang berkaitan mengenai konseling dan psikologi. Teman-teman, sekarang kita lagi di Fakultas Ilmu Pengetahuan Budaya nih.
Nah, di fakultas ini banyak banget program studi yang berkaitan dengan budaya dan bahasa di luar negeri, seperti bahasa dan kebudayaan Jepang, bahasa dan kebudayaan Inggris, bahasa dan kebudayaan Arab, serta bahasa Mandarin dan kebudayaan Tiongkok.
Di Fakultas Ilmu Pengetahuan Budaya juga terdapat ruang kebudayaan dan pusat bahasa di mana kalian bisa banyak belajar mengenai budaya di luar negeri loh.
Berikutnya Fakultas Hukum, yang terdiri dari ilmu hukum, cocok banget buat kamu yang pengen terjun ke dunia hukum di Indonesia nantinya. Bahkan, di Fakultas Hukum UI, terdapat fasilitas laboratorium moot court yang bisa membantu kalian untuk beradaptasi dan belajar simulasi mengenai sidang di pengadilan.
Dan yang terakhir, ada Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik. Di sini ada 2 program studi yang terkenal banget nih teman-teman. Pertama, program studi ilmu komunikasi, dan yang kedua, program studi ilmu hubungan internasional.
Di fakultas ini banyak banget laboratorium untuk menunjang pembelajaran teman-teman. Ada laboratorium TV, lab radio, lab desain, lab fotografi, dan juga lab sidang untuk hubungan internasional.
Tentu di sini kalian bisa meraih banyak banget experience yang sesuai dengan pelajaran kalian.
Nah teman-teman, di UI sendiri juga ada program pasca sarjana untuk magister ilmu hukum di UI.
Kak,
Ya,
kan aku kan kerja ya kak. Di sini ada kelas karyawan.
ada dong pastinya. Pertama, terdapat program blended learning untuk prodi akuntansi, manajemen, dan hukum. Kedua, terdapat program hybrid learning untuk prodi informatika dan teknik elektro. Oh iya, di sini juga ada program alih jenjang untuk prodi akuntansi loh. Nah, saat ini kita juga ada di perpustakaan Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Buat teman-teman yang suka
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrahli sadri wa yassirli amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahul qawli. Thank you to those who attend today at 2nd February 2023 at International Seminar Post-Pandemic The Future of Legal Education with lead hybridly at Arifin Panigoro Auditorium Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. The seminar aimed to gather, listen, learn from 4 countries, from Indonesia, Malaysia, Australia, and Netherlands, presented by Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, International Islamic University Malaysia, Australian National University, and Vrije, University of Legal Education Transformation during and post-pandemic. In addition to that, it also aimed to gather input on the outlook of legal education to help build the legal profession of the future by taking into consideration the expectation from each stakeholder with acceleration technology advantage and ever-changing practice of law. Furthermore, I'll present today's program, which is recitation of Holy Quran, sing the national anthem of Indonesia and March Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, followed by opening remark by Dean Faculty of Law Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, and opening speech by Rector Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. And the main is discussion by four speaker, Mr. Akhmad Safik, SHLLM from Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, Prof. Sonny Zulhuda, LLM PhD, International Islamic Universities of Malaysia. Next, Prof. Maguchu, LLM PhD, Vrije Universiteit of Netherlands, and Professor Veronica Taylor from Australian National University, followed by question and answer and closing. Move to our first agenda, recitation of the Holy Quran, Surat Al-Alaq, verses 1 to 8 by Agung Rifan. Agung Rifan is welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Iqra' bismi rabbikal ladzi khalaq. Khalaqal insana min 'alaq. Iqra' wa rabbukal akram. Allazi 'allama bil qalam. 'Allamal insana ma lam ya'lam. Kalla innal insana layatgha. Ar'ahu istaghna. Inna ila rabbika ruj'a. Sadaqallahul azim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Iqra means read. In this letter we are commanded to learn, to study, read. Iqra. Sadaqallahul azim. Move to our next agenda, opening remark by Dr. Yusuf Hidayat, SAG MH, Dean, Faculty of Law, Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. To Dr. Yusuf is welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. First of all, let's pray and thanks to God Allah who has given us His mercies and blessing us until we can attend this meeting. Secondly, salawat and salam be with our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has guided us from darkness to the lightness in this world as well as in the next world. To those we respect, Rektor Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, Prof. 'Asep' Saifuddin, 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 Prof. 'Asep' uh, Deputy Rector, all speakers who attend at Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, Dr. Professor Maguchu from Vrije University, and also Dr. Sonny Zulhuda. I think you come by online, yeah? But alhamdulillah you can attend at Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. And Mr. Ahmad Safik as lecturer at Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. And also Professor Veronica from Australia National University will come to meet again. We met at in 2007 at a memorial service for the late journalist lab at UW. And also Mrs. From Nusa, Nufik, okay. Thank you very much for your attend to this meeting. And also all lecturers and also students of Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. This is our time to discuss about methodology in teaching after pandemic of COVID-19. For more than 2 years, we have faced circumstances that provide wisdom for us to adapt more quickly to the rapid advancement of technology, which of course has a significant impact on the learning process. In the early days of COVID-19, we were introduced to online teaching method that we were not yet familiar with. With the passage of time, we have become accustomed to online methods. Of course, nothing is perfect in using technology in the learning process. There's always something we have to fix, especially when we are dealing with multidimensional humans. Besides, there are learning objectives that must be achieved which are not enough to use only one method. With the current condition improving, we need to discuss appropriate methods in learning processes, especially in legal education. This is very important considering the increasingly complex challenges faced by graduates of law faculties, so that skills are needed that are not only theoretical but also practical. Teaching mediation, negotiation, legal clinic, arbitration, contract drafting, and litigation requires a lot of time for students to go into the fight to see the real world, so they can quickly adapt to the world of work when they have graduated from university. We hope that this seminar will benefit all of us, and to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala we ask for help. I think enough here. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Opening speech by Professor Dr. Insinyur Asep Saifuddin, MSc, Rector of Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I would like to thank very much, especially to the Dean of Law Faculty of Al-Azhar Indonesia University and the resource persons who are willing to share their knowledge in terms of legal education in the post-pandemic era, which is Pak Sonny, Professor Sonny. He is from IIUM. I thought you are in Kuala Lumpur now, but I heard that he has a family meeting and in the same time come to our campus. Thank you, Pak Sonny. And also Professor Veronica from Australian National University. Thank you, Prof. Veronica, for your willingness to share your experience and knowledge in your law education to our students especially. And Dr. Prosper Maguchu, thank you very much for your coming here from the Vrije University, Netherlands. Thank you. Also, Pa Safik, thank you for your time for become the resource persons. And some people from Nufik, Ibu, terima kasih from Nufik, who always work together with us for better learning, better education. And I experience sometimes when we have when we have a COVID at the time in experiential learning, using online education at the time. As Pak Yusuf mentioned that this era, the technology is very advanced, almost replacing all human skills and competence in almost many aspects, including education. But we suddenly aware the usefulness of technology in education since March 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. We do not have any choice at the time that our education must be implemented not in real space offline, but in online. Therefore, almost all students all over the world have to implement online education. But very fortunate in our university, especially Faculty of Law and Faculty of Economic and Business, we developed in 2018 the program that we call blended learning. So we mixture between online and offline learning. So since that time, Faculty of Law as well as Faculty of Economic and Business, they have a bit experience on non-regular education. I believe that beside learning system, that legal education in Faculty of Law all over the world is the most stable in terms of credentiality. It cannot be replaced. So we still need credentiality from Faculty of Law for his degree. It cannot be replaced by other training. It doesn't mean that the training is not important, but credentiality is still Faculty of Law. It's not replaced by other mode of education. However, how to improve their competence, their knowledge, and as well as national, international networking, and lesson learned from other countries, we have to optimize the educational technology. So although your campus, your faculty is the most stable in terms of credentiality, but we still have to optimize current technology for our students. Including now, we are blending the concept of online, which could be many people in Zoom virtual space, but we still have some people in real space. That is the new technology. And in the same time, the student may have some other resources all over the world. Not only from the professors, but also from other professors, including from the Netherlands, Australia, Kuala Lumpur, USA, China, Taiwan, other countries in the world. But if we have to open the course online 100%, we still not yet happy, because 100% online, we still have some of lack for the experiential learning. In my campus, Bogor University Agriculture, or IPB University, we have what we call, in 2 years, since 2020, for the master program, we call the COVID generations. There are 2 years, 100% online. And for my experience, and including my competence, our competence in terms of how to get knowledge and how to implement that competence in the real world, is not 100% happy, because they could not run any software. They could not understand what is the data means in my domain, which is statistics. So the 2 years COVID generation, we have to again now readjust their competence to get some knowledge, to get some experience, the real experience of the real world. I think the same thing in other subject too, including law. Including law, we still have to have some experiential learning. In economic also, we need an experiential learning. In communication, the same. In science of culture also. In all of the field of science, we still have experimental learning. So I think now we have to optimize technology as well as sure the real life education. Therefore, for the moment, we would like to learn from the resource person, I believe, who I have already mentioned, how they experiment the experimental learning, and in the same time to optimize disruptive technology. That is the message. And not only for the law faculty, but for all faculty, for all study program. But the good thing of Faculty of Law, your degree cannot be replaced. That's true. Yeah. If I want to be a lawyer, although I am a professor now, I have to tick S1, Faculty of Law. But I don't have time, Forrester. But if I want to be a lawyer, I have to take S1 degree in Faculty of Law. So it cannot be replaced. Although I know all law, for example, no, I cannot be a lawyer. Impossible. That's the regulation. Therefore, be happy in this case. You are in the faculty of very stable credentiality, but please optimize the technology. Thank you very much. Billahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Moving to our main agenda, the discussion from our fabulous speaker here, Mr. Ahmad Safik, Professor Sonny Zulhuda, Dr. Professor Maguchu, and Professor Veronica Taylor. Led by Mrs. Nisa Istiani, HH, MLE, one of our lecturer at Faculty of Law, Universitas Al-Azhar, Indonesia, and she held a bachelor degree at law from University of Indonesia, Master of Law at Legal Institution from University of Wisconsin in USA, and she currently doing her PhD in competition agency reform at University of Washington at USA and teaching business law courses from undergraduate program in Indonesia, Universitas Al-Azhar, Indonesia. She also 22 years experiences in law and development sector. She had experience in working in various and law adjudication reform projects funded by international development donors such the Netherlands through IMF and World Bank, USAID, EUNDP, and AIDLO. Additional to that, she also did constantly work for various government agencies such as Ombudsman, National Agency for Planning and Development, Bappenas, National Procurement Agency, Corruption Eradication Commission, and her portfolio include bankruptcy law reform, competition law, anti-corruption, public procurement, judicial training, and project management. To Mrs. Nisa Istiani is welcome. I would like to invite our speakers to the platform to taking picture with the audience first. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to invite the audience in Arifin Panigoro to taking pictures together. Lead by the photographer. To Mrs. Nisa Istiani, our welcome.
Halo. Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for our rector, Probably we need to give him an applause. Say sorry for not joining with us for the discussion, but we do have our excellent speaker that we look forward to. So welcome to our seminar. The topic is post-pandemic, the future of legal education. I'm sure this is still relevant up to now. We have gathered experts in the field of legal education, represented by Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, and the Netherlands. Our speaker will be discussing the changing landscape of legal education, the skill that future lawyers will need to have, and how legal education institution can adapt to the demands of a rapidly changing world. This seminar promises to be a thought-provoking and insightful discussion, hopefully. And that's why I encourage the participant, either here in the auditorium and also online. I also want to welcome our participant online. I think more than 50 people join us through Zoom. This is what we call the mix of technology into our learning process. That's why I encourage all the participants here and also online to actively participate by asking questions and sharing your own ideas after we hear the presentation from our speaker. Let me first invite Bapak Ahmad Safik to welcome me to join me on the stage. Pak Ahmad Safik has been serving as the Vice Dean since 2019. Yeah. He graduated from Universitas Indonesia and also from the University of Washington Law School. His portfolio include on agrarian reform, land rights, land consolidation, land use and spatial planning, land market, and land-related institutional expertise related to Indonesia. He also has experience working closely with National Land Agency on several legislative initiatives of agrarian law issue in Indonesia, and has worked with Human Rights National Commission, Ministry of Agriculture, USID, Bappenas, IFC, and ADB. And he, as a senior lecturer, one of the courses that he teach is, among other things, is Introduction to Economics, Introduction to Development Economics, Agrarian Policy, Securitization, Indonesian Competition Law, and Economic Analysis of Law. So, quite a few. Thank you, Pak Safik, for joining us. And our second speaker, we're very delighted to welcome Dr. Sonny Zulhuda. It is a surprise for us because we thought that he will join us online, but apparently he could make it offline. So I welcome him to the stage. Dr. Sonny Zulhuda reads and writes on issues of cyber law, so very specific information governance, information security, and personal data protection. Dr. Sonny obtained his PhD in Information Security Law in 2010 from International Islamic University, Malaysia, and has conducted summer doctoral fellow from the University of Oxford, the UK, and two-time fellow of the US-based Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. So Dr. Sonny is very specific on technology and also personal data protection, which is very important for us. Now is currently serving as an associate professor and cyber law course coordinator at the Civil Law Department, Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah Faculty of Laws at the International Islamic University, Malaysia. And I would like also to welcome our third speaker from Vrije University of the Netherlands, Dr. Prosper Maguchu. Please welcome him and join us in the stage. Dr. Prosper Maguchu is assistant professor of law at Vrije University Amsterdam. You might want to sit here. He's also working on the Justice for All through University and Professional Sustainable Service Delivery Teaching and Training Project in Rwanda, which seeks to improve the quality of legal education in the region. He is an experienced researcher with a demonstrated history of working in the civil society and higher education sector. Also trained as a lawyer in Zimbabwe, he holds a master's degree in international criminal justice and a doctorate on corruption and human rights law. But despite of all these gentlemen, unfortunately we do have all panelists on the stage, but we will have one female join us through online. Despite all this expert specific experience, they do share common things. Yeah, they do have experience in terms of legal education because in addition to their consultancy work, they also teacher at their own universities. So without further ado, let's get started. And I would like to welcome and Pak Safik to start the first presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Nisa Istiani. It is delighted and an honor for me that this morning I am joining my colleague Professor Sonny and also Professor Maguchu, as well as one of my professors when I was in the law school of the University of Washington in Seattle, Professor Veronica Taylor. Looking forward for her presentation because it gives me like a memory back to when I was, and also Nisa were doing our school time in the University of Washington, Seattle. This morning I am assigned to be one of the speakers in this very interesting topic, discussing about the post-pandemic legal education. Allow me to stand up to make me more right. And also I can look at you, and hopefully no one here in this big auditorium not feeling sleepy. Okay, my presentation is about post-pandemic legal education, challenge and opportunities. As we know that the pandemic has affected millions or billions of people throughout the world, including Indonesia. We have been learning, we have been experiencing the impact of pandemic because we are part of the world, part of the communities that are directly affected by the pandemic. The pandemic has affected the poor and vulnerable the most, and it has been pushing millions of more people into poverty. So the pandemic has created more poverty in the world. I think we can see the impact up until today. The pandemic restriction to control the spread of virus has reduced pressure on the health system, but has an enormous impact on economic growth. That's why the economic growth of all the countries in the world are slowing down. That's why it is very, very important to see, to learn, and then anticipate what the best thing that it could do in tackling, in coping with this pandemic situation. the high cost of healthcare, the pandemic has highlighted the need for effective, accessible, and affordable healthcare. I think from our experience going through the pandemic, we all know that the healthcare system is just very, very important. And I think all the healthcare system throughout the world, even maybe one of the most sophisticated healthcare system, cannot cope with this pandemic, including our beloved country, Indonesia. And one of the important aspects that, especially on the education system, is at the height of COVID lockdown, more than 150 countries had mandated some of school closures for at least 1.5 billion children and youth. 1.5 billion. It is an enormous number of population. That's why people are thinking about the loss of generation, because many of our communities are not have enough resources to access the education system with the high technology. Around the world, the pandemic has associated lockdown are underscoring the digital connectivity that is now being a necessity. So having the internet is one of the solution especially for the education to cope with the pandemic COVID-19. And in Indonesia, at least 68 million students, including basic and higher education, affected by the pandemic. So again, the pandemic is an unprecedented, event, and it has affected enormous situation to all of the world, including Indonesia. And then because of the pandemic, it is what people said, something like the accelerated revolution. It is actually kind of that situation. Revolusi yang dipercepat, the accelerated revolution. We do not have any option except to face the situation. That's why all the education system are transforming the system into some form of education, including online courses, online classes, hybrid program, blended program. What people also call it distant learning and also remote learning. Yeah. However, the application of this online learning require technology that not all of the people, all of the communities, all of the school are can afford that high technology. Learning from what we have applied in Al-Azhar University, I think there are many challenges, constraints, as well as the opportunity. And we are lucky in Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, because according to the Ministry of Education, there are but 200 out of 4,700 of higher education in Indonesia that has learning management system. So again, we are lucky, and we thank you for the support from the foundation as well as the leadership of Professor Asep that can manage the difficult situation during the pandemic so that our education are still running without any difficulties. However, also, when we are applying the online system, it is very difficult to monitor and evaluation online class meeting because of maybe some not only technological gap, but also the cultural gap. Another challenge is instability of internet network. Some of our students are not able to join our class because they do not have enough credit in their cell phone, or they do not have any Wi-Fi connection in their home. And also geographical inequality in Indonesia, because different geographical place have different also the infrastructure of the internet. We are lucky because we are living in Jakarta, and Jakarta has provided enough infrastructure of internet so that we can follow all the program through online approaches. And also technology literacy. I think this is one of the challenges, especially not only for the student, but also for the lecturers. Because we do not have any option. We are forced to provide as attractive as possible when we are teaching our subject in online class. But again, it is not easy, and technological literacy is one of the issues that up until now is still something like myself, I'm still struggling, how to provide the best presentation, the best materials for my student. Hopefully maybe Prosper and Sonny could give another experience that we could learn from them to improve our teaching system in Universitas Al-Azhar, Indonesia. On the other hand, many students who are following the online class, the distant learning, has been affected mentally. According to the research, the mental health of students are affected. And there is an academic disruption, limited interaction, because all students are at home in joining the class. And also health-related fears, because we are forced to stay at home, because if we go out, there is a regulation that not allowed us to go freely because of the restriction from the government. And also the loss of normal routines. We are now maybe in what we call it a new normal. And the situation is becoming worsened. Students are happy to study at home, but over time, it turned out to be more tiring and harder to do. Because like what we do as a lecturer, also as the Vice Dean in Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, typically in a normal life before pandemic, we have maybe 2-3 meetings a day, or maybe in a week there are only about 5 to 10 meetings. But during the pandemics, the number of meetings in terms of administration, in terms of managing the faculty and also other activities could be double. Yeah, I think maybe 10 times more rather than in the normal life before the pandemic. And it affected also to our students, because they are not only learning, on the daytime in the morning, but also in the evening. And one of the issues that we also encountered in our teaching interaction with students is that the declining of academic integrity. I think this is one of the important challenges that we have to manage wisely, because there is an evidence that students are doing what they call it contract cheating. It is very easy for student, to hire an expert, maybe to write an article or a paper, even though it doesn't happen in Al-Azhar, I hope. And also file sharing, the academic file sharing. It is very easy. If you do your assignment, you could share with your friend, your colleague, in terms of maybe seconds, not minutes. And also exam cheating. So this is one of the difficulties in managing the education through online. The pandemic has also transformed a legal system as well as the government services. Like what we see in legal matters, Indonesia has adopted e-court, e-filing, so we can file a lawsuit through e-court system. We can file all the materials to the court through e-filings, and the court can invite the parties on case law using e-summons and also e-litigation. And the payment also apply electronic payment. And some government agencies also provide electronic or digital services like electronic land certificate, electronic mortgage, as well as the application of online single submission, which is part of the new normal, to apply more on online approach rather than on-site interaction. From that elaboration, I've learned some of the ideas coming from some of the writers. One of the writers that I take his ideas here is Mark Cohen. So there are opportunities for the possible future education, possible future legal education. The first is we have the tools. We have so many platforms that can be used to do the online learning in law faculty. We have resources, we have professors, we have researchers that can join us, and also market appetite. The market is still very high for the law school because legal matter is part of our lives, and legal matters becoming more important, especially for Indonesian people who are becoming more modern and more activities, not only within Indonesian territory, but also with international parties. In the new paradigm, legal education will morph from a place to a process. So from place to a process. And then appointed time to on time. We usually appointed to teach in one certain time. But in the new paradigm, we could do on time, in according with new arrangement or certain arrangement. And then in real-time learning and an artisanal delivery model to the tech-enabled and scalable one. Usually we do like this, we teach with the presence of our physical here. We can talk to you orally, directly with you. But in the new post-pandemic legal education, we could apply using technology that can be a more efficient approach in legal education. Legal education will be more affordable, because we do not need any space anymore. We do not need any nice building, to teach, to share, to transfer our knowledge on law. If we have download it or install an application, a platform that can be shared with our students, with teachers, the education can still running well. And then the education will be more data enhanced. The data that we have can be analyzed in more sophisticated approach, and then more accountable. Because if it is online, then everything can be traced very, very easily. And legal education will transition from short-term diploma factories to learning center for life that provide upskilling throughout careers. Upskilling careers, it means that if you, the student of Faculty of Law, finish your school, you can still continue your, to improve your skill by attending many online courses, or you can also develop the program yourself by connecting with some professors, some researchers, to upskill your expertise. Like if you are doing or an expert on litigation, you can contact with litigators either in the university or in the Attorney General office, for instance, so that you can upskill your expertise into much better level. That's something that cannot be imagined, before the pandemic. And then the new pedagogy will instill the flexibility, agility, kelincahan, augmented skills, and competencies required of legal professional in the digital age. It will offer curricula tailored to competencies, experience required for a specific role and function. For instance, we have Dr. Prosper here, we have Dr. Sonny here. Dr. Sonny is an expert on data protection law, and Dr. Prosper is expert on the area of corruption. If you are trying to have more knowledge from them, it does not require them to be attend here, to be present here. You just only know what are their emails, what are their cell phone number. You can connect, and then you can make an arrangement to do some discussion online. And legal education will provide a blend of practical and people skills, cultural awareness, and doctrinal knowledge. Like what I see in the beginning of, even before the pandemic, one of the example is at the University of New Hampshire in United States, where they offer hybrid Juris Doctor. It is, I think, one of the pioneers in providing a hybrid learning system even before the pandemic. And it gives people who are willing to learn law school, they can learn because of their commitment with their offices. They can learn from their home. They can learn from wherever they are, from wherever they are. So it is something that becoming very, very normal.
Sorry to interrupt your interesting presentation, but I think you only have 5 more minutes.
Okay. And then legal education will be tech-enabled and scalable. As long as we have technology, we can do the legal education. And student and faculty no longer be constrained by physical presence, prescribed times to learn, and one-size-fits-all approach. Automation and sophisticated digital platform will enable professors wherever they are located and by whomever they are employed to provide an individualized learning approach where student diversity, performance, behavior, and career objectives are taken into account. And the last one is law school. And I think this is something that maybe the Faculty of Law Universitas Indonesia could do in the near future, is law school will collaborate with other professional schools in university, legal service providers, educational companies that offer high quality, scalable content that can supplement and or replace expensive, underperforming faculty and supporting staff. So the pandemic has affected people and the negative impact have been easily found in our society. But at some time, the pandemic has also created many opportunities. And we hope that the Faculty of Law, especially Al-Azhar University, in Al-Azhar University, could use this opportunity to improve our Faculty of Law so that the quality of our legal education could be enhanced, could be more affordable, and could be provided in a more easily and more efficient way. And the last thing is, maybe this one of the my experience, the online learning system is very efficient, but there is still a big question whether it is an effective way in transfer of knowledge. Like when we do Zoom or online meeting using Zoom, for instance, because I can see all the students are turning on their camera, we are not sure whether they are following, the classes or playing something or maybe sleeping or doing, other things. But what I have seen in my kids, for instance, my kid is on the junior high school and also on the senior high school. When they are doing their online class, it takes maybe about 10 hours in front of their laptops. But actually, when I see closely, they are not following the class. They are opening YouTube for about hours. So this is something that will be the challenge when we are trying to implement the new approach of legal education, adopting the new technology as well as enhancing or improving the efficiency of legal education. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope what I explained can give you more understanding on the issues of the impact of the pandemic to the legal education system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Safik, for your nice presentation. I would like to invite Dr. Sonny to continue on the issues, the legal education. Probably you can share the experience from Malaysia and your thoughts on the future of legal education.
Thank you for having me, Ibu Isna. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Dean, Bapak Dr. Yusuf, Vice Dean, Bapak Safik, all the teaching and administrative staffs of University Al-Azhar Indonesia, my fellow speakers today, and my beloved students and audience and all the guests here. First of all, I'd like to thank again for having me in this event. It is a very honorable and good moment for me to come back. I remember I was standing here and speaking here around 5 years ago for a conference, but then it was followed with some online seminars and conferences. I enjoy the acquaintance and collaborations from colleagues of the Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, and looking forward to keep on collaborating on events in future, inshallah. So today I'd like to share. If you see the title or the topic of our discussion today, it is a mixture of few things. It is not purely a legal issue, right? It is both legal issue and educational and instructional issues. As what we have heard from the first speaker, most of the discussions is about how we cope with the challenges of teaching and learning law classes after the pandemic. So my presentation today, there will be few matters on instructional and teaching issues, as well as further discussion or bigger discussion of how we should cope with the legal education. So we can move to the next slide. As you'll see the outline of the discussions, it will be first, I will be pleased to share with you about the legal education concept in our university in Malaysia, International Islamic University Malaysia, and then how we then cope with this global issue or global problems of pandemic crisis that really affects each of us. So I hope you can bear with me. My voice is normally not like this. So if you're wondering, I actually have a better voice, alhamdulillah, but not today. This is not the best day for me to speak. But as what Pak Yusuf and Pak Safik was saying, I was initially to deliver this title, this material online, but then alhamdulillah I got opportunities. For some reasons, I could fly from Kuala Lumpur to Jakarta a few days ago, and then I can come here physically. So as you realize, sometimes online method is okay, but when you have it physically, you feel happier. I can see Pak Yusuf is happier to see me on offline. Yeah? I hope that is true, Pak Yusuf. Yeah? But I'm happy, of course, to be here. We move forward to the next slide. This is, as I said, you may want to enlarge the slide for this part, so it is better for the readers. Thank you. And also, I'd like to trigger and provoke students to visit us to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Last time, Pak Yusuf was going without students, so next time, Pak Yusuf will take the students, inshallah. So this university has been there for 40 years. And interestingly, law faculty is the first two schools that we had back in 1983. So we had for the first time two faculties, law and economics. Law and economics. So these were the first two. And alhamdulillah, by now, the university got bigger. Pak Ghazali. The university got bigger. There are now more than 26,000 people or students from over 100 countries. This is the whole university. And we have 16 faculties and 90,000 alumni from all over the world. And the last point there, I highlighted that the main vision that we have been holding all this while, 3ICE or 3 I's, Islamization, integration, internationalization, and comprehensive excellence. because this mission is being reflected in the legal education, as a matter of fact, very much part of it. So next slide, I'm showing you about our faculty, which is called ICOL, Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah of Law. So Kuliah actually stands for faculty. We don't call faculty back there, but we call Kuliah. So Alhamdulillah, I've been there since 1995 as a student, and now being the associate professor there. This become now one, I would say, the biggest law school in Malaysia, because we take and we have, maybe this is not as big as law school in Indonesia. Every year we produce around 350 law graduates only, 350. But in Malaysia, this is the biggest. Other law schools, they only produce 100, or less than that. And we focus particularly on the issues of harmonization between civil law and Islamic law. Excuse me. Ada tisu ya? Sorry, this is weather. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the vision and mission. I need to share with you this, because we are talking about the concept of legal education. If you can read, it's quite long. But what we really want to focus our students to become a balanced student, balanced graduate. We don't have this problem for online teachings, Thank you. So, we do learn everything that any law students do, but we want to have a very correct worldview. And this is the worldview that we have chosen in IAUM, that it is the Islamic worldview. What is Islamic worldview? Of course, we all know that we are all the creation of God, that we live in the world as the vicegerent, Khalifa. So whatever we do is for the sake of getting the pleasure of God. That is our clear worldview. Whatever you learn, you become law student, economics student, engineering student, science student, or humanities student, there is the same worldview that we have. So as a law student, we want to make sure they are a balanced individual. Can you move to the next slide? In the next slide, I mentioned a balanced law graduate. What do we mean by that? It is our objective to create a balanced graduate with a fundamental worldview of Islam, a balance between legal and general knowledge. So we also inculcate to them the general overview. We give them the correct, the package, the general packages of courses, but of course moving forward to the legal courses. Then we want to balance between theoretical and practical aspects. Also balance between the legal scholarship and legal profession. This is one of the issue, I think, that becomes problems or challenges for every law schools. Do you want to create a student or an alumni, a graduate, which is good and deep at legal knowledge, capable of interpreting the law and even synthesizing the law? Or do you want to have a student who can or who understand how to practice the law? Yeah? Practice means you can go to court and represent. Of course, we want the best of, the two worlds. We want both. But in reality, it is not easy. Yeah? Some schools, for the purpose of, especially after COVID, forget about having too much deeper knowledge and theories. Just give them few courses about philosophy of law, enough. And the rest of thing, how to make you a good lawyer in the court. Which to us is not really the case. We have to keep the balance between the two. Making a student a legal scholar, at the same time able to practice. Maybe we are not saying that he is 100% ready, because in Malaysia, an alumni, a graduate, after you finish the law school, you still have to go to chambering session. Chambering is like internship or practicum, yeah? For 9 months. It's a compulsory. So that is actually where you will be taught and trained by the lawyers. But not so much in the university. University, you give the basic procedural laws, evidence, and so on. So we want at least the balance of the two. And also between the industrial and ethical interests or constructs. We keep asking our student, when you are a lawyer and come someone asking your help to be represented to court, and you know that he was, as a matter of fact, a criminal. He at least a suspected criminal. And perhaps you know that he actually had committed that crime. Will you represent him to court or not? So some people will say, Na'udzubillah, no, I will not do that. Never. Some others say, whatever you do, I will win for you. We have the two extremes. So we want to make things correct. These people, whatever they did, of course, we remember, yeah, Al-Aslu, Bara'atu Zimma. Yeah, Al-Aslu, Bara'atu Zimma. Which is what? Presumption of innocence. So, as long as he is not innocent, go and take it. But what is the purpose of us doing that? Because we want to help the court. Yeah, that's the first thing first. We want to help the administration of justice to make sure that this person, whatever he has committed before, will get his right in front of the law. Yeah. So that is basically, we want to inculcate this right, understanding. When you become a lawyer, what is the purpose of you being a lawyer? Right. So we inculcate, we give them this all, whatever necessary skills and knowledge and so on. Okay? And when it comes to legal knowledge, we have no issue. But for practical knowledge, practical skills, we already added more, in our faculty. We have added more legal skills. We call it clinical skills. Yeah, for example, we have the next slide. So these are among the list of the courses, compulsory courses, but they're actually for the purpose of clinical skills. Legal methods, compulsory moods. Even when you join a competition outside university, you will be given credit for that. So if you don't join, you don't get the credit. If you join, let's say, representing university in a mooting competition, then there is a credit for that. Then we have professional ethics, law practice management, legal attachment, and so on. Next slide, please. Also from the student activities, certainly we also have in UAI, I think they also have. I think UAI mooting team is also active, Pak Safik? If I'm not mistaken, you have mooting team also. Now, what is the challenge after the pandemic? Let me get to the business here now. We need to revisit the aftermath of online teaching. I think Pak Safik already mentioned to you the ups and downs, the problems and challenges of online teaching. But we must understand, it is not all bad, it is not all good. Some students prosper like Dr. Prosper. Yeah. But some others suffer. We know for that. Not everyone suffer, but not everyone prosper. Yeah. Why? Because our teaching, our learning capabilities are different, isn't it? From one person to another. And our learning tendencies and abilities are also different. You will see that there are people who love to work on his own. He is not in need of, getting so much guidance. So these kind of people, they prosper during the online teachings. They don't need so much to see their lecturers, their professors. All what they need to know is what things to read, what things not to read, and they will do independent learning. These people will prosper, but there are some people who will suffer because they need our physical guidance. They need our physical interaction. That's why from here we know when it comes to after COVID, after pandemic, online teaching is not all bad. We still hold on this hybrid teaching. Don't leave out this. Why? More than 2 years, we have invested so much, isn't it? We have invested so much. The university has invested so much. We personally have invested so much to learn about these online teaching skills. Yeah? Though we have to thank first God and second COVID virus for that. So we are now experts, in applying the online teaching method. So don't leave them out altogether. Also during COVID, we can say legal research up, but legal clinic down. That is the problem. Meaning after COVID, we have to strengthen this part of legal clinic. Legal clinic means this is where you need this practical interaction, practical guidance between the professors and the students. And if you realize during online teaching, the methods of our assessments, assignments, as well as exam also change. We cannot give you a question like, what is the definition of, corporation, for example. They can get the answer from anywhere in the internet. So we were instructed in our university during the 2 years of this online teaching, when you create a question in exam, make it a problem question. So it's a problem-based learning. We used to have a mixture between essay question and problem question, but this time, at that time, it was purely problem question. My time? No. Oh, yes, I think so. We can, perhaps we go back to the previous slide first. So what the main point here is that whatever skills that we have covered, we ask students to do online presentation. Visualization is very important. Visualization by video, by multimedia, by pictures. Now these skills, we better maintain these skills and keep on doing that. Why? Because lawyers in future, in fact now, lawyers need to do some visualization in their work. Yeah. Visualization, you can use like a PowerPoint or a poster, video, and so on. These are still very much needed for the practical skills for the industry. Okay, then next slide. After we see what changes and we know what to keep, what not to keep, so let us get ready with the new challenges, especially because of this digitalization. Actually, it has been there before COVID crisis, but of course now getting more massive now. So a few points here. First, challenge to the legal education. Second, the challenge to the legal reform itself. Why are we concerned with legal reform? Of course, because we are part of the legal fraternities. People in the parliament, of course, they are the one who create the law, but they will want to listen from us. They will want to listen from our graduates. What do you think about this law? Should it change? Should it not change? And so on. So for the first legal education, we realized that COVID-19 pandemic is a global problem. Wherever you are, we have the same problem. We have the same issues. This is the best thing that we can learn from. Yeah? Never ever before, especially our today's generation, had witnessed any incidents which is truly global in nature. Yeah? Unlike our grandfathers, for example, they saw or they witnessed and experienced World War, for example, back in 1940s or back in early 1900s. It was a global, issues. So this is the time where we can show to our students, look, how one single problem can really affect the whole world. What does it mean? From there, we can trigger and provoke students' interest to learn about global legal studies. I give, for example, there are some issues which are very global, and Dr. Prosper is one of them, an issue of global crimes, he mentioned to me. Yeah? So from this aspect, people in Indonesia, in Taiwan, in Iran, in Europe, in African continents, we all face the same problem. And therefore, we are looking for similar legal ramifications and challenges. Might as well, we learn from each other. Yeah? How other countries deal legally. I remember in one of the webinars during COVID, I was invited by one of the university in Indonesia. We talk about how different countries experience and how different countries create different laws in order to tackle the economic problems. So issues such as health law, it is a very global in nature. Environmental law, energy law, security law, human rights, economic and financial law, and so on. In fact, data privacy and data protection is also one of them. During COVID, everyone wants to register their name or surveil. You must trace where you go. This is all data privacy issues. So what I was saying, this is one of the best time we can learn from this phenomenon about the problems of global problems that really affect the global legal studies. And then there is a massive use of the internet, we know. And recently I was only informed, I haven't tried one. I don't know if our students or participants already tried the Chat GPT. Have you tried Chat GPT? Bu Isna sudah ya. Is it helpful? Curious. Yeah. Curiosity kills. You better be careful. But I heard it is very useful. And Pak Safik was mentioning about file sharing and everything. I remember we also have the same problem, Pak Safik. Some students submitted exam answer with similar answers. They actually pulled the answer. Then I was thinking, what can we do? We need to do more surveillance and checking. But one lecturer cannot hold too many papers. So what I was thinking is, just like in our exam, I think our exam, in normal exam, you will get people to assist you, isn't it? Do we have assistants who check the exam in the room? Not everyone, but at least you can get. Maybe you are the lecturer for the whole hall room. You get 2 or 3 people. If it is big, then you have more people. So these people who assist you in checking the exam, they may not know about the material. If it is, for example, banking law, these people who assist you in the exam room, they don't know about banking law. But they can spot if any person is acting, curiously and suspiciously, isn't it? So when it comes to online submission, I guess we can also do similar things. We can assign 2 or 3 people to also help us. They don't need to know about the material of the law, but what they can do is doing the similarity check. They can do similarity check, and there is a system for that. So perhaps we can engage more people to help in the exam checking. What is left for educators? This is interesting. I think especially for lecturers and professors. We have been giving materials from time to time. And this is the time where our students will be able to say, Prof, I already know that. Where you get it from? The internet. Everything is there. I can tell you, and we better be careful. We don't want to do something redundant. We don't want to give things that students can already get from the internet. So we have to change ourselves. Okay, the syllabus may remain, but what do you want to give that students cannot get from elsewhere? That is what we need to think. I cannot tell you. I think you have to think yourself. What is it that students cannot get from you? First thing I can share is your experience. Yeah? Because my experience is not there in the internet. Maybe they can read about me in my blog, in my Facebook and so on. But when I explain and then package my experience to my students, that is something that students will never get from elsewhere. Your experience about your learning yourself. Your experience about interpreting the things. That is the first thing. Second, of course, critical thinking. But I must say, maybe one day, robots and AI will be as critical as we are. Because they can learn, machine learning. But there is always way for us to go ahead. So try to discuss with students. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Something happened in this, in the one of the city. What do you think about that? These things they don't get from the internet. But if we just give the whole material with the text and so on, I'm afraid it will not be very useful for our students. Next is self-learning mode. Student can self-learn. Now we have what we call as MOOC, MOOC, Massive Open and Online Courses. If you go to the internet and put this keyword MOOC, it is now the trend today. Because of so many materials in the internet, now they package it as a course module. So in the future, we can tell students, okay, for module ABC, you go to the internet, I will test you. We call this flipped classroom. In the past, before COVID, students come to our class to hear from us, isn't it? To hear from us and to hear something new. Then they will go home and read and review. This time we have to change. Try to change. We call it flipped classroom. Dibalik. Prosesnya dibalik. How? We tell the students, before you come to class, please read about this, and this. And then when we meet in the class, we will discuss. That is called flipped classroom. So students can read on their own. Kita berikan apa? Modul-modul. Ya, from which title, what page to what page, read. When we meet, we discuss. Or from this case, Ahmad versus Ali, read. Then when we meet, we discuss. So meeting in the classroom is never the same again. It is to confirm what students have read before that.
I'm sorry, Dr. Sonny. I think
Last minute?
3 minutes. Okay.
3 minutes. Oh, that's very kind. Saya sudah siap-siap kalau 1 menit. I will finish by then. That is how I think as we go further, we will see how things can improve. But what I really say is that now students are very smart. Unlike my time, we have to go to library, Pak Yusuf, isn't it? But students, they don't need to go to library. They don't know where the library is. Maybe Pak Yusuf next time, we meet in the library. Yeah? So some students never visit library. But yes, they have their world. They have the world in their hands. So let us stay relevant, you know. If we don't change, we lose the relevance. In the eyes of the students, we are not relevant, except for giving marks. So is our dignity and respect only limited to the marks? Of course, we don't want that to happen. Other than that, we want to see the legal reform. Now, we have to revisit all those traditional subjects such as contracts, torts, property laws, crimes, and so on. And we embrace the digital economy phenomenon. So this will make the courses more realistic, alive. Bicara tentang pidana dunia maya, cybercrime. Bicara tentang hukum kontrak perikatan, kontrak melalui online, marketplace. Ya. Bicara tentang property, data sebagai property. So we have a new vision of how we look at the traditional laws, and with this vision of digital economy. And certainly with the AI coming and getting more powerful, there will be many legal issues. Yeah? Because in the future, administration of justice will be automated. But to what extent we want it to be automated? There is where the law and rules will have to clarify. In Singapore already came up with the framework for artificial intelligence. This is not the law, but it is a framework. It is like a guidelines, national blueprint can be used when you want to take some policies and so on using AI. Then you see the rules and the principles. Singapore has come up with that. We can learn from there. Next slide. I think this is the last slide. And Alhamdulillah, I am here now. Right. So the steps, what to do next. First, some of them are very simplistic, but of course, a lot to do. First is to strengthen the vision and mission with a refreshed experience of the pandemic. As I did in the beginning, our vision and mission do not change just because of the pandemic. Let's go back to it and see what do we want our students to be. So this one has to be re-looked with this new phenomenon. The second, revisit the master plan, curriculum, syllabus, teaching plan, etc. in the wake of pandemic and digitalization experience. So I have been teaching for the past 10 years in IAUM, Malaysia, the subject called Law of Torts. It is not known so much in civil legal system. Ya Pak Safik, it's something like perdata, kesalahan perdata. Perbuatan melawan hukum dalam tort. Yeah, I have been teaching this. So now this time, the past few years, whenever I give exam question, it will be something about technology. For example, driverless car. A car without driver on the road and happens to hit someone on the road, killed him. So who should be responsible? But it is a driverless. It can run on its own. Should you sue the owner, or is it the manufacturer, or the government, or should you just be happy to take the car to the court? Because now they become more and smarter this time. Okay, that's an example. Okay, the last few points. Reset the new skill set. As I mentioned earlier, now our students, they can present not only offline but also online. They can make videos. I never know before. I just told my student, okay, go and make videos. And then suddenly they make very beautiful videos. I never know that they will be able to do that. I think every kids now and teenager now are able to do. Now I heard there's a CapCut also. CapCut. Very easy to make videos. So we use this for visualization, for explaining the law. When you graduate and you make your CV, don't write a CV like CV of my time. We have few pages of CV, nama, tanggal, sertifikat dan segala macam. No, make a video. Can you make a video CV? Or at least one-page poster, infographic. Write everything on one page. This is the skill we want our legal graduates to master. Yeah. So there are a few new skill sets that I think we should continue using. And then hybrid teaching method should remain. Yeah, outsourcing knowledge but transferring value. This is what I said. Remember, when you speak now, people will see. If you say something that they already know or they can get from elsewhere, they will sleep. I must tell you, I can tell you now. Even with their eyes open. Oh, yeah, they will sleep because they will feel that you are irrelevant. Of course, this is advice for myself also. Yeah? Last point. This is the most important thing I think we have learned. On top of that, we have learned lessons on crisis management. We have learned something about leadership. We need this very strong leadership during this crisis. And also survival. Yeah, sometimes you have to choose. Yeah, akhafud dararain. Two things, bad and risky, but you have to choose the less risky. Akhafud dararain. Yeah, that requires survival skill. And last is our worldview is being tested. So this is, I think, the biggest lesson that we learned from the pandemic. And I hope that can give you some ideas. That is my last slide, I believe, because after this, you will see my face. Yeah, thank you so much for all the attention, and thank you for having me again. I'm looking forward to any questions in the session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sonny. Without further ado, I think I would like to invite Dr. Prosper Maguchu to give his presentation.
Thank you, Chair. All protocols
And
observed.
sorry, and probably 20 minutes.
Yes, sure. So all protocols observed, but just allow me half a minute to express my gratitude to colleagues at the Faculty of Law, from Dean to everybody involved in making sure that I'm here today to make my presentation. Also, I would like to thank the university. The rector is not here, but I would like to express my gratitude for hosting me and our founding partners represented here, also by Ms. Shita, who is sitting in the front row. Now, within the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about my own personal experiences and experiences of my colleagues at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, in terms of where the future is going with regards to legal education, given the pandemic. If you allow me, just can you please upload my slides as well? Oh, yes, sure. If you just allow me to give you an overview, because I think then that will help you to then follow the presentation. And yeah, so I mean, previous speakers have already touched on some of the most important, relevant, or recurring issues that are often being talked about when it comes to the pandemic and legal education. But I'll bore you, or rather, I want to invite you to go back a little bit. Let's take a step backwards and just briefly talk about the origins of legal education. Then I will delve into legal education during the COVID-19 period. I'm not going to say much because most of it has already been mentioned. And then I'll go into the future before I close my presentation with the best practices. So what has been emerging as the best practices in terms of legal education post the pandemic era. So now with, next slide, thank you. So the study of law started way back before even computers, not only computers, even before books. So the medieval period, you would attach yourself to those who were gifted in knowing the law. There was others who were there before who drafted the codes, for example. So drafting the first codification of law, the Code of Hammurabi, I believe was drafted on tablets, made of stones. So even before books, people would attach themselves, one student maybe attach themselves to a lawyer, those who were, talented. And this is how somebody would learn. And given some limited means of recording or writing things down, there was also a little bit of writing, but most of it was based on practice. So it has to be in person. You had to attach yourself to a learned person and learn for many years, until maybe that person has become too old to continue, and then you now qualify and be told you are now a lawyer, now you can take over. So after maybe 20 years of apprenticeship. And then first, next slide. Yeah. So, but there were some developments over centuries. So in addition to a few books that were now available, maybe writing on some, very rudimentary canvas or paper that they developed at that time, they were able now to also sit down, so those mentors were able to sit down with their students and allow them to, have some discussion on certain points of law to an extent that certain mentors became, sources of jurisprudence. And thus beginning the learning of law, where you had some people who would distinguish themselves as teachers of law. Now let's go fast forward to later centuries. So I'll just try to move, but we'll also share these slides. Yeah. And now there was some revolutionary, technology in the 16th century with the printing press. So now books started being printed en masse. And students started now resorting to, maybe spending time in the library. It was much easier then that way that you could learn law from books. And started reading books, and, it stopped being a practice. The study of law stopped being a practice where you just have to go, spend many years as an apprenticeship. But you could now read from law textbooks. And And then in Europe, mainly in the United Kingdom and others, then they started legal education that was based on university education as we know it today, mainly as an undergraduate program of law. And then the next slide, I want to explain also something very important. It's very difficult when you don't have access to control your slides. Then later on, most of the legal education that we have was modeled under the United States law schools at the time. And I want to refer to a point that was made by Tommy. So during the whole period, the medieval period, lawyers were trained to, law was a discipline. So they were training scholars. And then came the United States, because of their, approach, which is quite different from continental Europe. They were actually running away from continental Europe, where they were now training lawyers for the practice of law, where you have to go argue, make even earn a living, from charging fees as a lawyer. So this is the development of law in a nutshell. And I want us to move to the next slide so that at least we can explain now where we're going. Yeah. So with the United States, now setting the standards, then there's something that was also very important, that law you could only earn a degree by attending law school in person. So it was prohibited, for example, in the beginning, to attain or to award a degree of law to somebody who has done it by legal, but only purely by distance education. And we could not even imagine at that time that one could earn a degree via online education. So even until just before COVID, and in some cases, the American Bar Association still prohibited, earning a law degree or universities awarding a law degree purely by online education. So just 3 or 4 years ago, you could not earn a law degree purely via online education. And I think, for the first, when in the opening remarks we were told about the COVID generation. So these are people who spent already 2 years learning law via online. So this is the background where we are coming from a discipline that started, or education that started as a discipline, evolving to become a practice in person, via apprenticeship, also expressly prohibiting distance education or purely online education. Now fast forward to 2019, 2020, the COVID pandemic. So if you can go to the next slide. Next, yeah. So law schools, despite having spent most of the centuries being, resistant to changes, they were now forced to adapt, and they are still adapting to COVID-19. Some have come up with some very funny terms like, adapting to Zoom law schools. And I want to move to the next stage. Next slide, yeah. So even prior to this, so we were, the main methods of teaching in law school have been based on what was introduced by Langendale, I think that was his name, Christopher Columbus Langendale, former Harvard Dean School of Law, who introduced the case methodology that has become very famous. I think also Tommy mentioned in passing, where you have Akhmad versus Ali and so forth and so on, asking students to analyze cases. And also the Socratic method. I just put a picture there. So where you have a lecturer standing in front of students and start delivering education. But this has become already unpopular with certain students, millennial students, who want to bring their computers, their laptops to the classroom, even want to use their tablets and phones in the classroom. So even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we were already questioning some of the old methods, such as the Langdalian case methodology or Socratic methodology, and we were now also beginning to experiment with a few other techniques. If we move to the next slide, I'm talking about asynchronous teaching methods. Tony also have mentioned in brief about flipped delivery methods. For example, some scholars started, recording themselves so that they could also, in addition to, in-person learning, you could post, if you have something like Canvas, Blackboard, you could also post a recorded video so that your students who have access or the flexibility to review the video after class. So this was even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, that the legal field or the study of law was also now evolving. So we started with asynchronous learning, and even moving to synchronous learning, where you could also, using different platforms, also provide in-person as well as, using different methods to provide, to allow students to do live streaming of classes, in a way that would also simulate or resemble a traditional in-class instruction. But of course, COVID-19 then changed everything, in a very much faster way. And, yeah, with, when universities were forced to close, including law schools were no special exception, and everyone was forced now to use, to resort to Zoom and other platforms that were available. So, and with this, we can also, I'm sure we can all then deduce that, like it or hate it, the future of technology, the future of legal education is now a technology. So whether we like it or hate it, technology has now become part of legal education. And during also this period, especially the past 2 years, 2.5 years since COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, most of colleagues, in the law faculty, legal educators, they've now been reflecting on this aspect of online pedagogy and try even to contemplate or come up with ideas on how we're going to teach, even post the pandemic, and how this technology will probably shape legal pedagogy in the future. In fact, there is also an emerging, body of literature that is pandemic related on how legal pedagogy can primarily, we can deduce some so-called best practices. I put it in quotation marks because there isn't really something that can be called, best practice, but these are the sort of common practices or common methods that have now beginning to emerge that could probably shape or influence the future of legal education. The first point I'll just go through very quickly, it has also been mentioned that perhaps this, what has been known as massive online massive open online courses are going to become very popular in legal education. So if I started by giving you an overview of how, or a brief background of how the study of law started with one-on-one. So one lecturer, one apprenticeship to one legal scholar. And now we are moving to an era where you could even have one lecturer having 1,000 students, because these are mocks. So can we still go back to that, maintain that slide? So, yeah, thank you. So, with massive open online courses, as the name suggests, massive, they don't have any limit. So you can have, I don't know, as much as 10,000 people subscribing to a course. So this could also be the next frontier in terms of legal education. And the next point, is hybrid teaching, and I think we already experienced hybrid teaching. The fact that today we have some of our colleagues joining online and others in person also is a testimony of how hybrid teaching is going to be the next frontier in legal education. So it can be in different forms. I'm also already doing it, where we are given an option at Free University to say, okay, you could also do some of the sessions in person, some of the sessions online, and for some, what I call the bare bones, those theoretical aspects, you could give students to, these sessions online, and for those other aspects or courses that requires some more practical, students to be engaged in a practical way, then you could do them in person. So this is probably going to be another common feature going onwards, that we have this hybrid learning, where we have some classes being held online and others being in person, or giving students a choice of attending online or in person. And another change or another influence that is going to be noticed in the legal field or in legal education will be, some of the skills that we have already learned during COVID-19. We're still going to put them into use even when we are going to deliver lectures in person. For example, we've now developed what is called gamification or gamifying legal studies. Again, as I mentioned, I think prior in one of the slides or paper, maybe I just rushed it through, that those old traditional forms of teaching that we are using, the Langendale or the Socratic methods, millennia, by millennia I mean those students, there's 2000, from 2000 onwards, the students don't find those kind of the method of delivery fascinating, or it doesn't captivate them. Some of them would like to bring their laptops. They always want to have their smartphones, at arm's length during lessons. So other lecturers have now beginning to capitalize on that. Also, it was mentioned by the rector that we need to maximize on technology to deliver the best legal quality education that we can for our students. So we have started to incorporate, instead of demanding that students don't bring laptops in class. That's something that we used to do before, by the way. I used to even have on my course syllabus a bold statement that, no laptops in class, and I had some reasons why, because I thought that was distractive and you could not tell who is following or who is not following. You don't have eye contact with the students, because most of the time, they are competing between listening to you and also, working on their laptops. But now we are now beginning to ask students even to, can you please use this link? Can we have a poll, using in-person lectures, but also using technology in the process, because we have already gained this and it has now become popular, and also allows some interactive lessons. So not everything is bad. Having said that, before I go into the other aspect of technology, but the next point I'm going to make, also another major change that has been brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, if you could go to the next slide, is the shift when it comes to assessing students. So prior to the pandemic, we used to have this numerical where we would give you 88%, sometimes 88.5%. But now all that is now being questioned. That was the purpose really of having all that numerical kind of assessment. So now we're moving, because it was quite challenging during the pandemic to assess students that some of them you have never even met, because some of the students who joined university during COVID never had an opportunity for a year or even two to meet with their lecturers. So we're now just moving to this. It's almost a very efficient way to assess students online, giving them, good pass, very good, So this is probably going to be the next method of or efficient way of assessing students, even post-pandemic. But this is something that became very popular during the pandemic. But not all disruption is good disruption, and also technology can also have its negative impact. And I'm also thinking that, and if we move to the next slide. Yeah, so it remains to be seen, and I think now speaker after speaker have talked about this, but I'll just briefly also highlight, sharing this anecdote that ChatGPT that Sonny and Safik also talked about it. I think somebody else may have talked about it. Nisa also, we were discussing it as we were sitting there with the chair. Just a week ago, it actually set and passed an exam. Okay, set virtually for an exam and passed. So this is also probably, it remains to be seen whether the future of education, of legal education rather, is going to embrace even this artificial intelligence that allows students to do things that prior were never imagined. And so in a nutshell, I would say this is from our experiences in the other side of the world. This is what we have experienced, and this is where COVID-19 has taken us in as far as legal education is concerned. And I would like to thank you for attentive listening.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Prosper. I believe that you finalize sooner than later. I would like to welcome Professor Veronica Taylor, who has joined us through via Zoom, and I would like to test the connection with her. Professor Taylor, do you hear us now? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh,
hello,
perfect.
Nisa.
So this is a perfect situation for the hybrid webinar. Before you start the presentation, I would like to read your short bio. Professor Veronica Taylor is an international lawyer and social legal scholar. Her current work centers on the regulatory dimension of international and domestic justice norm. She is internationally known for her work on rule of law promotion and is intermediation as foreign policy, commercial activity, and a professional practice. Her work draws on 30 years professional experience as a designer, implementer of legal reform for international and bilateral aid programs in 15 countries. What is amazing, Professor Taylor, over the course of her teaching career, has supervised more than 40 PhD, master and honors level research project. And fortunately, I'm among of them. Hopefully, I could also finish my dissertation under her supervision. Please welcome Professor Taylor. Can we applause for her joining our session? Without further ado, I would like to ask you to start this presentation. Thank you, Professor.
Thanks so much, Nisa. Selamat siang. Hello, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to join in this really good conversation. I really appreciate the remarks in the presentations that I heard already this afternoon. I prepared some slides, but I think what I will do, since I'm reporting on the situation from Australia, is just to highlight the things that are similar and then highlight some practical steps that we're taking to meet the challenge of how technology is really transforming legal education. So the first issue is how we learn. And as previous speakers have already shared, the students that we're working with now have unlimited access to information. So they can reach and use information of all kinds and quality all the time. So what that means for us is that the university is no longer a unique place to learn. It's not the main source of knowledge. But the challenge for us is to make it a special place, a special and especially interesting and stimulating place to learn. The second thing that has changed about how we learn is that as well as bringing devices to the classroom and being able to access that unlimited universe of knowledge, students are now very used to learning in groups, so learning in teams. And the thing that's new now is that artificial intelligence can be a team member. So if you want to write an essay, you don't just ask help from your classmates, you can ask help from AI. And so the challenge is what do we do about that? The third thing that's changed is that we were moving away from examinations as a way of measuring learning. But we are likely to move back to examinations, and we did that during COVID, partly because they're efficient, but also because we need some way of verifying that the student has actually absorbed the knowledge and is able to use it. And that's particularly important for legal education because it's credentialing people for practicing law in the future. So in response to the development of the new AI that enables students to really substitute AI for their own effort in exams, Australian universities right at the moment are returning to using pens and pencils and paper in exams. So if you're using a pen or a pencil and paper, it's truly a test of what you've retained yourself. But that's not a permanent solution.
Yeah.
So what we have to do next then is develop new rules about when and if you can use AI in both assignments and exams. So at the moment, my university, the Australian National University, is writing new rules about when students can collaborate with AI. And the basic idea is that we should permit students to use AI if they're using it in the way that they would use a friend or a team member. But if AI is substituting for the student's own effort, that shouldn't be permitted. But of course, it's very difficult to tell the difference. So we also need to use other technology tools like much more powerful software to check plagiarism, to check where copying has occurred. And of course the big problem, as everyone is aware, is that AI is now so good that it's going to be difficult to detect plagiarism or copying when the AI has generated it. So those are the challenges we're facing in how we learn. Let me talk for a minute about how we teach. And I think previous speakers have really drawn our attention to this as well. Our teaching has to be interesting. It has to be compelling because we're competing with TikTok. So what that means is that our teaching has to be professional, and at the moment in Australia we're requiring all lecturers to be trained in how to design and deliver courses, and also to be trained in how to build and deliver online courses. And that means not just mastering how to put the content together, but how to use images, how to use music, how to use video, how to make videos, how to get students to make videos, how to design quizzes, how to design games to make the learning experience really interesting. We talk about making the learning experience sticky. We want the students to attach to the teaching. What we are now doing as a normal course design is the flipped classroom. So presenting most of the chunks of knowledge and the things that we want to draw attention to in the website, and embedding video, embedding games, embedding quizzes, embedding links to websites, and allowing the students to navigate that website environment at their own pace, by themselves or with a friend. And then when they come to the classroom for the live session, this is where we're consolidating learning. And we're consolidating it through lively discussion, group work, and through the kinds of games and quizzes that we just saw. So the classroom now is not a place for transferring information. It's a place for testing and consolidating knowledge and debating knowledge in a way that was less common in the past. The third thing that's changed is how we think about transferring skills. Skills matter for legal practice, where this is a particular kind of university education where we're trying to grow a professional cohort that can serve society, serve the community. So the particular skills that matter for law are the same ones that were important 10 and 20 years ago. The ability to sift information, so to work out which information matters and which information is less important. Critical thinking, so how to identify a problem and work through the different components of a problem to find the answer. Sustained analysis, so how to read material and think about it in a really sustained way. And then how to write clearly, how to communicate orally in a very clear way as an advocate or as an advisor, and how to write clearly. The big challenge is that all of those skills and the development of those skills are really challenged by technology. We know that the impact of having young brains connected to technology for 18 or 20 hours at a time is that the brain capacity actually shrinks and the ability to concentrate really, really shrinks. So, and we know that the technology platforms reward lots of attention, lots of eyeball time by giving us dopamine hits neurologically. So our education space is competing with very, very, very powerful technology platforms that are actually undermining the skills formation that we need. So the next layer of skills that we need to be thinking about is teaching people how to use technology effectively, including how to limit their own use and exposure to technology. They need to be able to use tech because in Australia, all of our litigation, our court processes require you to prepare and file documents electronically. During COVID, a lot of court hearings were online. ADR now has the option of being completely online or AI-driven. And so the third cluster of skills for lawyers is the ability to regulate technology. So we've created new courses in responsible AI, space law, nuclear technology, data protection and privacy, plus. So all of the areas where new technologies are changing government and business and society are areas where lawyers can contribute as contributors, as people with knowledge about how to regulate and balance the risks in the use and rollout of those technologies. And then the final thing I wanted to just draw attention to is that the way in which technology is changing the future of practice. So technology blurs national boundaries. We have these very strict regulations about, at a national level, about who can become a lawyer, who can practice law, and what kind of law they can practice. But when you can access legal services and legal advice through technology globally, the consumer or the client is not really limited to only getting information or advice from their national or nationally accredited legal service providers. So what that opens up is the probability that at some point we will have to mutually recognise provision of legal services because they're already being provided through technology. You don't have to be physically present in a city in order to give someone advice. And it also opens up more opportunities for sharing the development of e-learning and professional development for practitioners. So that's another big topic, but I just wanted to add it to the list of things that we're talking about today because I think that we'll find that it comes more quickly than we imagine. So let me stop there and hand back to you, Nisa, for conversation. Let me also apologise in advance because I'm in a full-day government meeting at the moment. I've stepped out in order to join this important conversation, but I will leave a little early. Thanks, Nisa.
Okay, thank you, Professor Taylor. I think what you've been mentioned is some of the issue has been previously touched also by other speakers. So we could see the red line here, the connection here, that legal education is now about giving more added value because more and more information are available massively online. So what can we add it to that? Giving more experience, giving more skills, giving more practice. There's what you're saying in your presentation, saying that the classroom right now is not about giving information, but more about consolidating ideas, discussing ideas, and transferring experiences. For that, to continue the discussion, I would like to invite participants from here and participants from online. If you have questions to the speakers, to our excellent speakers. Any questions from, probably I will give the opportunity first to our online participants. Is there any, Mr. Fajar? From online? No one? Okay, probably the opportunity is for participants in this room. Anyone would like to raise question? Yeah? You can introduce yourself, please. And perhaps be specific to whom you address the questions.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Fadli from Office of International Affairs. I want to ask to all panelists about what your advice or suggest about the situation of the pandemic, because my student and also the lecturer feel comfortable with pandemic approach learning. So the example, let's go, we go offline, and then the student say, oh sir, may I just in the home, just online learning. What about your advice about this situation? It is very dilemma for us to back the new normal situation after pandemic. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Is there any questions? More questions? Before I give the speaker the opportunity to answer. Anyone? Agung would like to raise your questions? Okay. Agung is a law student in Universitas Al-Azhar, Indonesia.
Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
My name is Agung Rifan, a law student at University of Al-Azhar, Indonesia. I have one question. I want to ask to Mr. Sonny Zulhuda. Before, I think in the era of globalization, of course, there is a change in the legal paradigm, and law must keep up with the times or society. I mean the values of the local character of society in determining the direction of legal development. So the question is, do you think local characteristic still play an important role in legal education? That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Agung. Before giving more opportunity to other participants, ladies first, gentlemen, will that be all right? Is Professor Taylor still here? You want to address the first questions? How to compel student transforming back from online to offline, because it seems it is more compelling for them to join all the classes online. It's more convenient.
Thanks very much. Yes, look, we have exactly the same challenge in Australia. The campus has reopened, and in fact, our academic year starts next week, and we're hoping that all the students will come back to campus. But the reality is that some will not. Some people like the convenience of learning online. Some students are shy and they like to be in a quiet environment and not have the pressure of interacting with other students or needing to interact with the lecturer. Some students are working, and so they prefer to be able to go online from any location. We understand all of that reality, but what we try to communicate very strongly to students is that the quality of their experience and the value for these tuition fees that they're paying is much greater if they come and participate in person. And so that means that the in real life, in-person sessions need to be super interesting. It means that we need to offer something extra. So quite often we will arrange for students to come and have a meal together or have coffee and snacks together, and we'll provide that. It also means that we need to compromise. So we can't require people to attend in person 100%, but we might say the expectation is that you attend 30% of classes in person, and we will tell you which ones are the really important ones. And those will be the classes in which there's group work or there's an oral presentation. But basically we have to stay flexible. But I acknowledge that it's a big challenge.
Thank you. Hope that answered your question. And for the second one, I think I would like to welcome Dr. Sonny to about local characteristic. Will that be still relevant?
Thank you for the question. Perhaps because we all have been falsely led to believe that online learning is the best. I would say that is a false belief. Then we have this question. The question was whether or not local characteristic, local wisdom is still relevant. I think it is a very obvious, or the answer is very obvious, because we learn law and we cannot ignore the local circumstances. We cannot ignore the local values when it comes to learning law and teaching law. And local values and local characteristics of the society is something that we cannot learn from books. I believe we cannot learn from books. You can read any books. Indonesian society is a very friendly community. You can learn, you can read that, but how do you feel that friendliness until you go down and meet people? Yeah. Then the value of gotong royong, the value of hukum adat. Yeah. So all these customary as well as local circumstances, there is no other way for you to learn and to experience but through the experiential learning. This one we need to learn from Dr. Prosper. Experiential learning. You have to go down, meet people, and that's why it's so much part of the legal education. Get the students to meet people, to meet the industries, to meet communities, ask what their problem is, try to give solutions and so on. So I could have answered your question by plain yes, but I already gave you why I said yes. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for a very solid answer from your side. Any more questions from the audience? Okay. Another one. Please introduce your name and to whom you address the question. Is it on?
Tes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
My name is Fadil Abdul Karim. I am law student at Al-Azhar University. So I have a question for Mr. Safik. So the question is, can we have legal clinic? So that's it. Thank you, sir.
It's a demand, Pak, from the students to reactivate our legal clinics, perhaps.
Okay, thank you, Fadil. I'm actually tend to give more chances to Prosper and then Dr. Sonny and Professor Veronica, because I've been interacting with you in the last maybe 3-4 years. But again, legal clinic is very important as we have been working with our friends, Dr. Prosper. Last year we have had a workshop on experiential learning, and one of the action plans after we finish the workshop is to establish clinical legal activities within the Faculty of Law Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. And we have also discussed with our colleague in our weekly, monthly meetings. And maybe in the coming months, we will establish, one of them is clinical on my specialty, clinical on agrarian and natural resources, because it is very important. There are many challenges, many problems that have been arising, especially on the area of cities, because our university is city universities, and there are a lot of dispute, a lot of problems originating from the issues of agraria, so that we are able to analyze, to address, to discuss in more detail, in more comprehensive about the clinical approach on the issues of agrarian as well as natural resources, so that we can not only analyze in terms of academic approach, but also we will learn more on the application, as well as we talk with Prosper and Pak Sonny to have comparative approaches, how to develop policy, how to have a better approach in serving the community, the Indonesian people, with the best policy on agrarian issues better than before. So thank you, Fadil. We promise that we'll be establishing the legal clinic.
Yeah.
One of them is on the agrarian
Law.
energy resources.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's upcoming. You could probably join it next year, Pacific. Will that be doable? Hopefully, hopefully. Is there any more questions before? Okay, one more questions and then we could conclude the session. Please introduce your name.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
My name is Muhammad Dito Abensi. I am law student from University of Al-Azhar, Indonesia. I would like to ask some question to Professor Veronica Taylor. As an international lawyer and educator, how does the industry or other stakeholder play a role in the education process? Thank you.
Okay, another question for you, Professor Taylor.
It's a really good question because this is also something that has changed. In the past, the actors that really controlled legal education were the legal profession and to some extent the government through funding. But we find now that industry and business are very important partners. They're important partners because they're big employers of graduates. Not all graduates will become advocates. Many law graduates will join companies or join in-house legal teams. The second reason that companies are important is because they themselves have a lot of knowledge that's beneficial for law students. So they know a lot about technology because they're producing it and using it. They know a lot about innovation and industrial processes that are new. And again, that's something that law students can really benefit from knowing. So what we're doing more of is inviting business speakers and industry leaders to the law school to talk with students. We're also designing courses around particular industries and really getting a much closer relationship with business and industry. And, you know, that also indicates another change in legal education, which is that in the past we thought of the law degree, undergraduate and then maybe a master's degree as being fairly generic. So really being for sending people towards legal practice in a law firm or as a prosecutor or as a judge. These days, I think we understand that there are many legal professions. And so we need to be preparing people for working as lawyers within government, working as lawyers within business and for business, working as lawyers in the community sector or the non-profit sector, working as lawyers internationally. All of those sort of sub-professions require their own skills, their own training and their own part of the curriculum. So more challenging but also more interesting.
Okay, thank you. Will that satisfy your concern? And I think more law schools are now, I mean the stakeholders are expanding, beyond law firm, beyond government, so we need also to include business sectors and perhaps other community as well in the future. So if there is no more questions, then probably we could conclude the very interesting discussion. And what I would like to highlight is that technology is inevitable. Globalization is inevitable. We faced with situation that either we try to stop it, or we try to hide from it, or we embrace it. Like for example, from the speakers, ChatGPT probably is one of the tools some students use it to cheat or to do their assignment, but how we deal with that? Do we want to come back to the traditional way of assignment using paper and pencil? Or do we find an opportunity in, for example, given by Professor Taylor, that there is probably a session or one opportunity for the student to use it, but then in order for them to improve their critical thinking. So it's a challenge for our educators to always find a way to give added value for the students and to try to work or collaborate with technology itself. So that will conclude the discussion. I would like to your applause for all of us, for the speakers, for the participants joining us online and offline. I hope we could continue this discussion further, because I think changing is inevitable as well. So we keep learning and we keep processing and we keep discussing. And I would like to give the floor back to Ibu Amori as the Master of Ceremony, because if you could join us a little bit more, Professor Taylor, there would be an online appreciation, token of appreciation for you. Yeah. Oh yeah. Taking picture together. Okay. So probably before giving the token of appreciation, we could take pictures with the our online participant and also our speakers. The participant do you want to join us on the stage? Yeah, okay. For our online participant, could you open your camera for a while for picture session? The token of appreciation for Professor Taylor from our Dean.
Professor Veronica, thank you very much for your participation. We have met at UW 2007 when memorial for Professor Daniel Eslab, and we hope that Mrs. Nisa will finish his program doctor. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Professor Taylor, thank you very much. Hope to see you in person sometime. We have an obligation to continue the legacy of the late Professor Erman, Professor Taylor. Hopefully, okay. So hopefully we can do something between UAI and Astra National University. Again, thank you very much, Professor Taylor.
Thank you, my great pleasure.
And then the token of appreciation to Dr. Sonny from Dean Yusuf Hidayah. Can we give them applause? And then to Dr. Prosper Maguchu. Last but not least, for our speaker from Universitas Al-Azhar, Pak Safik, from Dean to Vice Dean. No, it's okay. Okay, thank you all. See you again in another interesting discussion organized by Faculty of Law Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Assalamualaikum semuanya, selamat datang di Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia. Perkenalkan, nama saya Zulhuda, mahasiswa Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Dan saya Emilia Mahadi, mahasiswa Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Pada kesempatan kali ini, kami akan mengajak kalian untuk berkeliling di Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Di sini kalian bakal dapat banyak banget ilmu pengetahuan dan juga rahasia yang sangat luas.
Dengan berbagai produk studi yang unggul, pengajar-pengajar profesional, hingga fasilitas yang mumpuni, kalian bisa mewujudkan mimpi kalian di sini.
Mulai dari konten kreator media, peneliti dan dosen ramah hingga menjadi seorang tenaga. Kak, bisa lihat langsung semuanya nggak sih? Bisa dong.
Yuk berangkat. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam. Semoga Pak.
Alhamdulillah baik, Prof.
Pada mana?
Mau ngajak calon mahasiswa untuk berkeliling UAI, Prof.
Oh, ini calon mahasiswa baru nih.
Betul, Prof.
Kalau dianterin,
Pasti Prof nanti kalau mendaftar
di situ ya.
Oke, siap, Prof.
Selamat mendaftar ya. Ya, Assalamualaikum.
Siap, boleh mendaftar, Prof. Kalian tahu nggak sih, UAI itu satu-satunya kampus yang terlahir dari masjid. Dan di UAI terdapat 6 fakultas dengan 19 program studi yang bisa kalian pilih. Buat kalian nih yang suka banget sama teknologi, ilmu alam, atau yang bisa di saintek, Fakultas Sains dan Teknologi merupakan pilihan yang tepat. Di dalamnya terdapat program studi teknik industri, teknik elektro, informatika, biologi, teknologi pangan, dan gizi. Fakultas ini juga dilengkapi dengan berbagai fasilitas laboratorium virtual, mulai dari laboratorium manufaktur, laboratorium kimia, laboratorium elektro, laboratorium mikroorganisme, dan lab-lab yang berkaitan dengan sains teknologi lainnya.
Fakultas berikutnya adalah Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis. Buat kalian yang mau masuk ke dunia bisnis dan keuangan, keren banget nih. Ada program studi manajemen dan program studi akuntansi. Di Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis juga terdapat fasilitas laboratorium Domino, di mana kalian juga bisa belajar banyak mengenai keuangan dan perbankan.
UAI juga ada Fakultas Psikologi dan Pendidikan, teman-teman. Buat kamu yang aware tentang mentality dan counseling, program studi yang ada di fakultas ini pas banget.
Mulai dari program studi psikologi, PDPAU, bimbing konseling Islam dan pendidikan agama Islam. Pada fakultas ini terdapat lab counseling, lab medical teaching, lab eksperimen, dan lab-lab lainnya yang berkaitan mengenai konseling dan psikologi. Teman-teman, sekarang kita lagi di Fakultas Ilmu Budaya nih.
Nah, di fakultas ini banyak banget program studi yang berkaitan dengan budaya dan bahasa di luar negeri, seperti bahasa dan budaya Jepang, bahasa dan budaya Inggris, bahasa dan budaya Arab, serta bahasa Mandarin dan budaya Tiongkok.
Di Fakultas Ilmu Budaya juga terdapat ruang kebudayaan dan pusat bahasa di mana kalian bisa banyak belajar mengenai budaya di luar negeri loh.
Berikutnya Fakultas Hukum yang terdiri dari hukum, cocok banget buat kamu yang pengen kerja di dunia hukum di Indonesia nantinya. Bahkan di Fakultas Hukum UI terdapat fasilitas laboratorium court yang bisa membantu kalian untuk beradaptasi dan belajar simulasi mengenai sidang di pengadilan.
Dan yang terakhir ada Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Politik. Di sini ada dua program studi yang bernama teman-teman. Pertama, program studi komunikasi, dan yang kedua, program studi hubungan internasional.
Di fakultas ini banyak banget laboratorium untuk menunjang pembelajaran teman-teman. Ada laboratorium TV, lab radio, lab desain, lab fotografi, dan juga lab sidang untuk hubungan internasional.
Tentu di sini kalian bisa meraih banyak banget experience yang sesuai dengan pelajaran kalian.
Nah teman-teman, di UI sendiri juga ada program sarjana untuk magister ilmu hukum di UI.
Kak,
ya,
aku kan kerja ya kak. Terus ada kelas karyawan?
Ada dong pastinya. Pertama, terdapat program learning untuk program akuntansi, manajemen, dan hukum. Kedua, terdapat program learning untuk program informatika dan teknik elektro. Oh iya, di sini juga ada program ahli jejak untuk program akuntansi loh. Nah, saat ini kita juga ada di Universitas dan Al-Azhar Indonesia.
Buat teman-teman yang suka membaca buku atau ingin cari referensi buat tugas, riset, maupun skripsi kalian nanti, perpustakaan UI punya banyak banget kumpulan literatur akademis jurnal hingga bacaan lainnya.
Berikutnya, ini adalah fasilitas UI, yaitu Auditorium Arifin Panigoro.
Di auditorium ini, kalian bisa menggunakannya untuk kegiatan umum, atau bahkan bisa digunakan untuk seminar juga loh.
Dan kapasitasnya banyak banget, sering banget dipakai kegiatan teman-teman juga, gitu.
Gak cuma auditorium aja loh, kamu juga dapat menggunakan ruangan teater untuk melaksanakan pembelajaran kuliah dengan fasilitas yang keren dan lengkap.
Selain itu, di sini juga terdapat fasilitas BI Corner.
Di BI Corner ini, kalian dapat mengakses buku-buku atau hanya sekedar diskusi.
Waktu istirahat, akan bertempat banget nih buat makan-makan sambil sampai bareng teman-teman di kayak universitas 1 dan universitas 2. Apalagi banyak banget pilihan makanan yang bisa kalian pilih di sini, ya kan Bu?
Tuh. Oh iya, di Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, kita juga diajarkan untuk memiliki gaya hidup halal atau halal lifestyle. Yuk, let's move.
Nah, kalau kalian ingin mencari suasana yang tenang atau sekedar untuk istirahat, di UI sendiri ada namanya Masyarakat Al-Azhar. Kalian bisa beribadah atau mengikuti kajian di Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia ataupun di Masyarakat itu sendiri.
Jadi teman-teman, sekarang kita ada di rooftop UI ini.
Nah, di rooftop Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, kalian bisa foto-foto buat koleksi album kalian, atau kalian hanya ingin sekedar untuk snack-snack makan-makan aja, kalian bisa melakukannya di sini.
Nah, ini ada Tajir. Hai semuanya. Tajir adalah inkubator bisnis yang menyediakan edukasi dan arahan untuk mahasiswa yang ingin menjadi entrepreneur. Di sini kamu akan dibantu untuk mengembangkan bisnis kamu, mulai dari pelatihan, workshop, networking, magang, hingga modal baik dalam maupun luar negeri.
UI juga memiliki total 17 kegiatan mahasiswa yang dapat kalian ikuti loh. Dan tentunya, kalian juga dapat mengikuti kegiatan organisasi yang ada di kampus. UI yang merupakan bagian dari Yayasan Pesantren Al-Azhar juga menjalin hubungan mitra dengan banyak perusahaan ternama, tokoh nasional dan tokoh internasional yang pastinya memberikan mahasiswa networking yang sangat luas. UI memiliki banyak sekali penghargaan-penghargaan yang didapat teman-teman, seperti 10 besar kampus swasta terbaik di Jakarta, dan juga penghargaan dari Badan Narkotika Nasional atas peran serta UI dalam aksi pencegahan, pemberantasan, penyalahgunaan, dan peredaran gelap narkoba. Selama masa pandemi, juga mendapatkan penghargaan dari Kemdikbud atas kontribusi dan inovasi yang dilakukan pada masa pandemi COVID-19. Alat ini juga ditunjukkan langsung oleh Presiden Republik Indonesia yang ke-7, Bapak Insinyur Haji Joko Widodo. Alat yang ditunjukkan merupakan Power Air Purifying Respirator. Mahasiswa dan mahasiswi UI juga banyak banget prestasi sudah dicetak, mulai dari tingkat regional, nasional, hingga internasional loh. Kalian tahu gak sih, mahasiswa UI sebelum mereka lulus dari wisuda, mereka sudah masuk di dunia kerja seperti di sektor swasta, sektor pemerintahan, dan industri-industri lainnya. Selain itu, mereka juga aktif untuk membuka lapangan kerja di Indonesia. Mereka sering sekali mengikuti kegiatan menjadi entrepreneur sehingga bisa membuka lapangan kerja di Indonesia. Bahkan, mereka sampai mendukung pergerakan roda perekonomian di Indonesia loh. Nah, langsung dengar kata mereka yuk.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Akhmad, CEO dan co-founder dari Grafik Kreatif Digital Agency. Saya lulusan UI dari Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik, program studi Ilmu Komunikasi. Selama menunjukkan di UI, saya mendapatkan berbagai pengetahuan dan pengalaman yang luar biasa, melatih pola pikir dan komunikasi saya, sehingga saya bisa masuk dunia industri dengan cepat dan siap. Mata kuliah jiwa kepemimpinan dan karakter korporasi yang memberikan membantu saya dalam mengembangkan bisnis yang sedang saya jalani.
Alhamdulillah, selama saya studi di teknik elektro UI ini, saya merasakan kekeluargaan erat baik antara mahasiswa maupun dengan dosen. Selain itu, kami juga para mahasiswa didorong untuk melakukan publikasi baik di konferensi maupun jurnal internasional.
Sebenarnya pengalaman berharga yang diberikan oleh Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia untuk saya. Yang pertama adalah yang harus saya lupakan menjadi seorang studi representatif, di mana saya mewakili Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia untuk sebuah proyek mahasiswa yang ada di Jepang. Jadi saya melakukan student exchange ke Jepang untuk beberapa bulan. Dan yang kedua adalah mobilitas yang saya dapatkan dari Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia itu baik sekali karena lokasinya sangat strategis, sehingga itu sangat memungkinkan untuk saya tetap bekerja sambil kuliah dan juga nilai-nilainya tetap maksimal.
Dulu saat belajar di UI, gue banyak belajar mengenai skill-skill yang dibutuhkan untuk bisa kompetisi di perusahaan besar seperti Gojek. Skill apa sih? Skill pertama yang paling dibutuhkan adalah skill berbahasa Inggris, dan itu dipelajari di kampus UI ini. So, jangan ragu untuk bisa mendaftar di kampus UI, karena masa depanmu ada di sini.
Wah, UI bagus juga ya.
Ya,